Thank you very much, Ambassador, for that very generous and kind introduction. And I want to thank all of you in the audience for your very warm reception. I have had the privilege over my public career of working with several members of the audience to try and advance the cause that has gathered us here today, to lift the designation on MEK and to promote those who seek reform and democracy within the nation of Iran. And I have stood for this. I've been privileged to work with you in this regard, not only because I feel that it is right for the people of Iran, but because I feel it is in the best interests of the people of the United States of America as well. I'm privileged to be a part of this distinguished panel today. I can't help but think, Ambassador, back to something that President Kennedy once said when he and Mrs. Kennedy gathered in the White House every living Nobel laureate from the United States of America for dinner one evening. And in addressing the Nobel laureates, he said this. He said, "This is the most talented group that is gathered in the White House since Thomas Jefferson dined alone." So I'm privileged to be with such a talented group here today. We don't have nearly as much time as we would like, and much of what I believe has already been said. But let me begin by addressing those at Camp Ashraf who are watching us today, and all of you about the video, the very emotional video that began these proceedings. I would encourage this group to disseminate this video as widely as possible. Because to the extent that I understand my fellow countrymen and women, I believe that those images, which are more powerful than anything that could be said, will stir the moral indignation of the American people in a way that will advance the cause that has gathered us here today. There is no society on earth, no religion, no nationality, that would support the kind of brutality, the senseless killing of unarmed civilians, the slaughter of women that we witnessed in that video. That violates every code of conduct of human decency of which I am aware. And I am confident the American people will rally to our side once they've been informed about the terrible events of last Friday. And the fact that this was carried out by a regime that currently enjoys the substantial financial support of the American people and the continued military protection, at least in part, of the American armed forces, will stir the American people to our side even more than would ordinarily be the case. It is simply unacceptable that the regime allied with us would engage in such crimes against humanity as we witnessed in that video. So I say to you, the American people, stand by your side. With regard to Iran, the Iranian regime views the events that are sweeping across the Middle East as a transforming period, and they are emboldened and are looking at this in a very opportunistic way. They are seeking to use their influence in Iraq to chart the course of that nation, and there is no doubt that their hand was behind the atrocities committed at Camp Ashraf. I think we have to start with the clear understanding that we can no longer delude ourselves into believing that a policy of an engagement or appeasement with the regime in Iran will be successful. It simply will not work. This regime respects only strength. They respect only pressure, and either the use of force or the credible threat of the use of force. It is important that we deal with the Iranian regime not as we wish it were, or as it someday might be, but as it currently is. Now, what does that mean? That means continuing to do what we can to help the dissident groups, both in Ashraf and within Iran. It means being unequivocal with regimes with which we work, such as that in Baghdad, in Iraq, that they simply must choose. They can work with us and receive the benefits of American support and largesse, or they can try and placate Iran. But they can no longer do both. And the cynical and reprehensible attack upon Ashraf should cause us to very clearly communicate with the Maliki regime that this sort of thing is intolerable, and if repeated, will mean a complete rupture in relations with the United States of America. Let me conclude by saying this. Senators, as Senator Bradley will recall no doubt, are accustomed to speaking at great length, but we don't have that privilege here today. You know, as I look across the developments in the region, it would be easy to become cynical or pessimistic. You look at the brutality in the streets of Iran, the manipulating of the election, the attack on Ashraf, the assassination in Lebanon several years ago. There is evil in the world, regrettably, and it's important to recognize it when we see it. But at the same time, I would like to leave you on a hopeful and optimistic note, because I believe that when we stand with the cause that has gathered us here today, we have put both ourselves and the United States of America on both the right side of human history and the right side of human nature. We're on the right side of human history because the cause for which we stand today, from the hillsides in ancient Athens to the fields in Runnymede to here in our own country, in the village greens in Lexington and Concord, the cause of freedom has proven to be a very powerful force for change across human history. The freedom to choose your own leaders. The freedom to speak your mind as you see fit, to worship God as you see fit. The freedom to enjoy the fruits of your own labors. This has proven to be more powerful than any despot, than any dictator, than any theocracy. Because in spite of the repression, in spite of the evil that we have seen, I fundamentally believe that in the long run, that knowledge is more powerful than ignorance, that truth is more powerful than deceit, and that love is more ennobling than hate. It is those values that will ultimately give the people of Iran their freedom, and in so doing secure for them and for us a better and more decent world. And I'm proud to lend my voice to that cause today. Thank you for having me.